Welcome to the Searchlight Sessions. I am Maggie McClure, your host, and today we have a very special guest, my friend Lindsay Fellows, coming live from Los Angeles, California. He is a music supervisor and branding specialist with over 25 years in music and entertainment, with Golden Globe, Grammy, Academy Award music-related nominations, and more than $1 billion in box office feature films like The Imitation Game, Thor, Captain America, the first Avenger, and the Chronicles of Narnia. Lindsay's experience and expertise crosses multiple aspects of the entertainment industry. He began his career in licensing for RCA Records and launched the careers of artists like Sixpence None the Richer, which I am a huge fan of. With his branding and promotions talent, he started his own company, Immersive Artistry, over a decade ago, doing music supervision, licensing, and brand activations. Welcome, Lindsay. We're so happy to have you today.
Glad to be here.
Awesome.
That's a lot of stuff I thought I did.
You've done a lot. It's very, very impressive, and we're excited to talk to you today. I'd like to start by just getting your background of how you got your start in music and what your path has been like to lead you to where you are today.
Well, I think like most people that do what I do or what you're doing now, you start out just being a music fan and doing music at school and playing in bands and things like that. And that's kind of what led me to being an artist. That was my goal, was to be be a rock star. And had some really good success. Was in a pretty big band in Canada where I went to film school. And at that time, there was no internet. You couldn't get anybody on the phone in New York. Basically, New York or LA was just it. And even though I was from Detroit, you couldn't get people to really notice you. It's very difficult to get a record label guy to come out and see you or anything else. And so at that point, our band was pretty big. We'd done a bunch of big tours after I finished university, and we came to LA. And I had some lucky get some cuts as a songwriter. And that took me out to Vancouver, and I started making trips down to LA. Then I got the band to pack up our bags, and everyone moved west. And, that experience was pretty humbling. You move coast to coast with $1,500 in a van and don't know a single soul and all that. But that band only lasted about 2 months. And a couple of the guys never been away from home. They were homesick. They moved back to Detroit. And my guitar player and I stayed out here. And so we just stayed and grinded out. And we played in tons of bands. And, every time, this drill better than anybody, but, you put a band together, you're doing showcases, someone quits, the whole band changes, the sound changes, you got to start over again. So we did it. We went down that road. And through my attorney, through my publishing deal, I met tons of great people. And he kept bugging me to get a job in the industry. And I didn't want to, and I went to work, but I did it begrudgingly, went to work at RCA Records in licensing. So that was my first job, was working for this guy who'd been there 25 years. It was this cranky attorney who literally every day I would come into work, he'd say, "What are you doing here? Get out while you can. This is a horrible business." Like every day. And he'd beg me to quit and leave and go do something else with my life and whatever. So anyways, I didn't listen. And then I moved back to, I was here about 4.5 years, and Chloe was born and Claudia was born. And I was like, what am I doing here? I never planned on living in LA, and We moved back to Canada, and I was going to open a restaurant. And this ice storm hit and destroyed the building in all of downtown of the city that we were from. And so we didn't know what I was going to do. It's the middle of February. It's freezing cold, and I've got no money coming in. And I got a call from this new label that was starting, Squid Entertainment, which was a guy that had been my old manager, Steve Prendergast. And he said, "I'm starting this label. I want somebody that can come out and kind of like help me start this out of Manhattan Beach, And we got this band, Sixpence None the Richer. And at that point, I was like, yeah, they're okay, And he sent me the song. And then I was like, well, I'm not really sure what else to do. And he goes, well, why don't you just come out for a month or two and help me get things set up? And we'll just take it from there. And one thing led to another. And, it was kind of a unique opportunity in the record business where 1 minute you're doing, packaging. The next minute you're helping with music videos. Next minute you're doing radio promotion and all that. So I literally got like 10 years of record label experience, way more than I ever would have gotten at RCA Records, starting this record label. And then we ended up doing a joint venture with Columbia, which was great. They helped us with Kiss Me. And then we did another joint venture with Elektra. And both those singles were such high priority records at that time that I really got to network and meet with a lot of great people. And ironically, the band broke through because I had a lot of relationships from licensing. When I was at RCA, I knew all the music supervisors, and literally there's maybe 8 back then. There's 8 to 10 tops. And so they, through that, I started pitching the band, and we got picked up for a film called The Faculty. And The Faculty was a big priority film for Sony Pictures. And the film came out, and we started looking at the film towards the finals, and they're like, this isn't really a Kiss Me movie. It's too violent. It's really dark. And we didn't know what we were going to do. So we decided at that point to just kind of shelve it. We were going into the holidays, and over the holidays, Miramax came back to us, who we did The Faculty. The Faculty came out, and The Faculty bombed. And they came back and they said, hey, we got this little teen film. You know, we feel really badly. Why don't we put it in this film, She's All That? I saw the movie. It was really a cute little film. And Stuart Copeland from The Police was a composer, so I got to meet him. I was like super thrilled. And I gave him all the stems to the song. And I was like, do whatever you want, you know, just like go crazy. And so he literally sprinkled the song throughout the movie, all the TV spots, the trailers, the radio promos. And within 3 weeks, Kiss Me was a #1 testing song at Z100 in New York, just through the advertising for the movie. And we hadn't even gone to pop radio yet.
Wow.
So that really taught me kind of a lesson of the impact of music and film. So flash forward, we did that. We had another band called Chevelle that did really well. And then the label ended up getting sold. And I got called to go start a label publishing music supervision company within AEG, which was building AEG Live downtown LA with the Staples Center and the Kings and that whole group of Phil Anschutz. So I went over there and we started the company, and within probably 6 months, staffed up 9 people, and Napster happened. And all the Napster thing went down with all the people started stealing music, right? With Christina Aguilera was like the first one, and Metallica, and all this stuff started happening. And they called us up and they said, you know, we're going to shut the label down before it even started. And we had signed 2 bands, which was a real bummer for those bands. Mm-hmm. And so we had to let the bands go, lay everybody off. We all got our walking papers. And then they called me like a week later. They said, we want you to come in and be our head of music for the film side and manage these film properties. So literally overnight, I went from like kind of knowing nothing about the film business to, you know, $1 billion in films being made at, you know, all tentpole films from Narnia to Bridge to Terabithia to Holes to whatever, and kind of get thrown under the bus with doing, you know, SAG deals and union deals for scores and learning how to package composers and all the stuff that I really didn't know how to do. But fortunately, I got to work with a lot of really great people who taught me. So it was a really great time. And then, so that was kind of the beginning. And then that one thing led to another. After AEG, after the crash of 2008, everybody got let go from Walden Media, and I had to start my own company, basically start all over again. And so I started all over again with my own company, and through that have consulted for just about everybody in town, you know, from Red Bull to CBS to, you know, Miramax, done tons of films, big films, little films, independent stuff. And I think the one thing you learn is that, you know, you got to be prepared for changes all the time. There's a handful of people in this town who, you know, most of them who have had 2 jobs their entire career, right? And they'll go nameless, but literally they got a job when they were 28. They came up through the ranks. They left there when they're 40. They went over to another studio, and they're going to die there. You know, like, but that is so the exception. And I think you'll find with most people in this world, were all musicians. They were DJs in high school, DJs in college, whatever, and they kind of came up through the ranks that way. So my path is that much different than most, I think.
Well, very interesting to hear your backstory and all of your experiences, and really cool to hear how you've gotten to where you are today. Let's talk about music supervision. So what are some things that you think artists should know when they have music that they think is really great quality and they would love to get it placed in film and television and in ads? Where does one start? What advice would you give?
Well, I think the one thing is identifying those songs that, you think are really strong. And, if your friends, if that's the song you play live that always goes over, if that's a song that all your friends love, because every artist, and I'm sure you're like this, my daughter's like this. I was like, whatever I did last is the best thing I've ever done. Right. And so you have to be it's hard to be objective about your own material. And I think you have to understand what, TV, especially films, are a little bit different because films can be period driven. So obviously you're not going to be in a period film from the 70s or whatever. But assuming it's a modern day story, that, they tend to lean towards the middle of music, right? Yes, they'll use a little hip hop, but not really. They'll use something really hard rock, but not really, unless it's an on the nose scene. So they're always looking at things that are going to help shape the tone of it. So as you're looking through your music, thinking of things that are think of your song as an emotional beat that's going to lift whatever that scene is going to be, just like a score would, or orchestral score. Song's going to do the same thing. And I think it's identifying those songs. I think it's identifying the people that license that kind of music for that kind of shows. And I think it's, it's very tough for hip hop, and it's very tough for country, are probably the two toughest things, right? Pure country, I'm talking, because they both bring a place and culture with it, whereas something that's a little more up the middle tends to have a little more, it's not going to take the picture in a specific direction. Obviously, if it's a hip hop scene and you're in a club in an urban setting, that's fine, right? Or if you're in a rural area and you're in a honky tonk and you're playing country music, that's fine too. But generally speaking, I think it's understanding what the market is for the show. You want to be sending your music to people that like it. And then you want to do your homework on them, see how much music they're using in the show, what types of music they like, and then try to make a connection with them, which is obviously the hardest part, as getting people to respond. I mean, I'm not even active on TV stuff really, and I get 50 a day pitches. Wow. Easy every day, if not more. And that's just then you got all the majors, all the small labels, all the independent publishing companies, the independent music supervisors, music supervision groups. So there's no shortage of music. It's a matter of trying to find the right music for that project, right? So I think it's really good to do homework. Again, when I started out, when I was at RCA Records, there was literally 8 to 10 music supervisors. That was it. And now there's 3,000 in the Guild of Music Supervisors. So are all those people busy? No. But there are a lot of places where music's being used that weren't being used before. They used to just use library music. And so whether that's ESPN, commercials, bumpers, promos, and it's understanding the way that music is picked. And it's not, people always think the music supervisor is a go-to person on a TV show or a film. And really, directors pick most of their music editors and editors pick a lot of the music. And it's really, for a lot of people, it's a music supervisor's job to present music that can be clear, that they want, and that show the vision of the executive producer in a film, a creative director in an ad agency, or a director on a movie. And but it's identifying those people and trying to put your best foot forward with music that fits that project, right? Because a lot of people pitch me a whole bunch of stuff that's I don't need that. That's not what I do, and it's okay. And I would say that if you're going to try to make an introduction to people and reach out to people, it's always good to say, to make a connection, can I send you something? And then if you are going to send them something, don't send them an album. Send them a song that's a really good song. This is why I love this song. Every time I play it live, it kills it. Here's this is the emotional beat. This is the lyrical idea to it. It sounds like X, Y, and Z, in the vein of whatever artist that is. And try to frame it a bit and see if you can get somebody to listen to it. I mean, that's the hardest part. And I just know that because I am not listening to everything that gets pitched me. There's not enough hours in the day. Right. Yeah. So, and also, do homework on like how you present it, even within an email, like I still work on that all the time. Mm-hmm. I just got a mail platform that I'm starting to play around with. I don't know if you've probably heard about this. It's called, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of it. I just downloaded it the other day. I don't want to screw up our Zoom here, but it was, I got an email from a guy in England, and it was how he had his, he had the videos of the artist playing in the email. So the picture was moving like a loop, just like a 5-second loop. and then he had an active Spotify link that didn't take you to Spotify. It played in the email off Spotify, which is really cool because not everybody wants to launch Spotify, right? They want to listen to a bit of the song, but they don't want to do that. So, it's changing all the time, right?
Right.
But I think it's obviously you want to have great material. Your music should be worth something. And, if you have co-writers and all that, obviously you want to make sure that the music is clear. Well, the last thing you want is pitch something. And then when your co-writers thinks he's written the next Frank, my way. and it's like, I'm not giving that up for $500. There's no way, everybody's got to be on the same train. So when you're pitching it, you're like, hey, I can clear this. It's an easy clear, one stop, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I would also say this, if they're picking you as an unknown artist, they're picking you because they can't get so-and-so, right? It's very rarely does a music supervisor pick an unknown artist unless they're out of money and they're out of time, right? They need something they can clear quickly for a price and be able to get it done. Otherwise, they're going to use Billie Eilish, right? Whoever.
Yeah. So. Right. Well, thank you for all of that. And in the emails, word on the street is not to attach an MP3 to the email. You don't want attachments. Is that right? How to present a song?
Generally speaking, yes, because it's funny because I go through this. I'm doing this right now with Chloe, right? So every time she has something new come out, and some people, want an MP3. Some people want an MP3. Obviously Spotify playlist or probably even SoundCloud is better, but if they don't have that downloaded on their computer, they can't play it, right? So believe it or not, there's a lot of people that still use iTunes and they want to click on an MP3 and they want to play the song. So you don't know. Attachments, a full album, no, I would not do that. And you'll see from the majors, they have a couple different platforms there where it's like, stream, download, and you can play within the email, the track, and if you like it, you can download, right?
Yeah.
So I think that format, unfortunately, most independent artists can't afford that. So, I find that when I'm sharing new music for Chloe, it's like I do best, if I share a Spotify link, people seem to like that. They seem to like that, or a hyperlink, if you can get a hyperlink, if it's just her kid or whoever, excuse me, that they like that. But again, I probably still have as much success with MP3, but I'm also not putting a lot of other crap in there, right? People, it's just an ADD world. People can only digest so much information. So you want to grab them, a brief sentence on the song, this is what it is and why. I get so many pitches. I kind of see what I respond to, and I frame my pitches based on that, right? And if I get something that's just a wall of text, nobody's looking at that.
Yeah. Right. I found the most success with sending a single song as well instead of an album. And I know the tendency is to send the whole album. When is a good time to reach out to music supervisors generally?
Well, it used to be very much tied to season, right? So to network television, fall, spring, blah, blah, blah. Now, and it's a whole new crew of it's Netflix or Amazon or whoever, of music executives that are in-house, music executives that are supervisors that are working on the shows. And so it's a kind of a 360 round. There's really no wrong time, There used to be a certain time that you'd only release a single, which was basically going into the fourth quarter. Now people are releasing singles year round. You used to only release a movie in the fourth quarter or for a summer blockbuster. Now it's, January 9th is a huge day. Valentine's Day is a huge day to release a film. So I think it goes the same for music. I think when you have something good that you really believe you're excited about, that's when you want to pitch it. There's no right or wrong time.
Yeah. And do you suggest just sending the main mix, and then if someone is interested, then at that point, if they request an instrumental or TV mix, then you could send that their way?
Yeah, and I think the assumption is you have the stems, right? There's a girl that I've been working with and who's a fan of Chloe. She's been great, and she's pitching her stuff now. But she's very organized. Like she wants, when you send it to her, all that metadata has to be in it. She wants to know all the splits, all the contact numbers, and that's a lot of work, right? If you're an artist, like Chloe's got 100 songs. Easy to pitch. That's inputting that information, all that metadata in there is super important. And she's just that type of person. has some process she takes, she loads it all in, and it's in her system. And if she wants to license it, it's like tick, 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 out go the confirm letters, right? And so I think, having all that information in there is super helpful. It's best to do it as you're finishing the song and as you're doing the mix, but I definitely wouldn't send the mix. And unless, if you have some song like, I keep trying to think of something that's like really dark and brooding and it really lends itself to, an instrumental track that almost feels like score. Maybe that's a little bit different, but I think you're always better sending off that first song. If they like the song, think it's cool, just, you want to follow up with them on some kind of regular basis. If they have a specific show they're working on, I think this would be great for Yellowstone. I think this would be great for Hannah, know what's happening in those productions. And then have that ready to go. Because the last thing you want to do is to go bug your friend who did you a favor when he's doing a mix to get him to do an instrumental. And believe it or not, this happens all the time. And I tell new artists, young artists, you're in the studio, you're mixing your single, you're mixing your song. The finish, when you are done printing that mix and you're done with it, mute the vocals, print the instrumental, do a TV track. Like, it's 15 minutes of your time then. It will be a nightmare to try to find your buddy who did this just a favor, did it for free, and now you got to track him down. He's got to load up all the sessions, get that all going. Oh, I really don't like the mix. I really actually want to change it. It's like, try to do it in the moment because it really does make a difference. And then you've got everything at the same place.
Totally.
Yeah.
That is very, very good advice. Let's see. As an artist and producer, you've also created a lot of custom tracks yourself, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I've done a bunch of things. I wish I had more time to do that. Most of my time on the creative side has really been more spent on developing shows. So I've got one show that Sony and Walden Media bought, and that looks like they're shopping that starting in January with UTA. I'm super excited about that. And that would be a 1-hour drama. So I'd be an executive producer on that. Very music-driven show, lots of music in it. It's going to be great. Huge opportunities there.
Very cool.
And then, but as far as me being able to go in the studio and do stuff, it's very tough. Other than kind of helping Chloe out and mixes and things like that and working on those things, I really there's just not enough time, unfortunately.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, what are some things that people should know about when they're asked to write or produce custom music for film or TV? Do you have any advice on that?
Yes, and I've actually had pretty much batting 1,000 on that because, often you'll get something. Well, first of all, assuming that they're going to send you a script and write a song and you think that's going to work is like zero chance that's ever going to work, right? And what I try to do in those situations, I try to find something that's in the energy and tone of it, right? Like whatever that is. Like if it's a montage sequence and it's fast-paced action, and if you can find something that is obviously that editor's been cutting that scene and they know what's working, right? It's Jet's Cold Hard Bitch, right? That's working in this scene. Obviously, we're not going to license that song. It's too old. It's not contemporary. But we love the energy of this rock and roll kind of thing. Well, if you know that that's working, then there is a beats per minute, that you're cutting to. There's a key that they're used to hearing. So if I'm replacing Jason Mraz's "I'm Yours," and which gets temped in like everything all the time, right? And you got to replace that. It's a very hard song to replace because it's super familiar, makes the scene work well, everybody's happy, blah, blah, blah. Now you got to throw in an unknown song. I would go in and I would be looking at the key that it's in. I'd be looking at the kick snare pattern that it's in and the tempo. And I'd be looking at that and looking there's a reason they chose that song to cut to. And if you're not hitting the lifts at the same time that song was hitting a lift, it's not going to work. Mm. Right? So I do spend a lot of time on that, of crafting. Why is this track working? What do you like about it? And it could be, some people are very directors and executive producers. They're not music people. They're very layperson. They're just like, I've always loved anything from I love the song as a kid to, I love the energy of it and blah, 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 blah. And that's all the information you're going to get. Right. Mm-hmm. So whereas the other thing you go, I love the lyric, the lyric's really important to me, whatever lyric that is. So Phil Phillips' home gets tempted in a million things. I just saw two or three commercials this week because it's Christmas, right? So it's getting cut in all these commercials, everything from 50 to 60-year-old Viagra commercials to, someone coming home for the holidays because it's COVID and they're using that song. That's a really hard song to clear. It's a very expensive song. So, but people are always trying to replicate the feeling of that song and the sentimentality of it. And, I've been asked to replace that one before. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Tough one. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you just want to try to get as much information of like, what's the motivation of the scene? Is it a lyrical issue? It may not be a lyrical issue. I just like the tempo and blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, you want to try to get as much information as you can so they give you the best shot of succeeding. It's very hard to go, oh, here's a scene. Just imagine this. She's running through the streets and it's a chase scene. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe. The only film I've heard of that really worked backwards like that was when Trent Reznor did Social Network. He wrote the music without ever seeing picture, and the film was edited to the music. He didn't score it directly. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't spot the picture. Oh, the cue's a minute, 6 seconds, and da-da-da-da-da. Like, it's like, no, I'm going to write a piece of music based on this character. Here it is. And he edited the film to the music, which is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, that is very cool. What's your take on revisions and rewrites? Is there a time when you say enough is enough?
Not as a new artist or a new composer. It's never enough. Will people drive you crazy? Of course, especially people that can't communicate musically. But if you watch the pros, you sit down with a Harry Gregson Williams, you sit down with a really strong songwriter, they can make changes on the fly. Like, they literally sit down at the piano and they'll bring that creative person under their like, everyone loves music, right? That's a challenge, is that music has just such strong opinions, regardless of your age. You have a point of reference of the music that you grew up with that you like. And so you've got to kind of get to the germ of what they're thinking and why they're thinking of that. And they're like, oh, that's too dark. Well, someone's sad, someone else is inspirational. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It could be the saddest song in the world, or it could be the most uplifting, powerful, I'm going to take on the world, right? It's all perspective. So, like, you want to try to figure out what it is that they're bumping on and why. And again, I think most people, whether it's a lay person who doesn't know anything about music, or you work with some directors, writers, whoever, they are musicians. And they're like, you know what, I can't stand that electric guitar sound or whatever. Like, can you do X, Y, and Z? So I don't think, until you're in a position of they're chasing you, like, I don't think Billie Eilish or whoever, Ariana Grande or whoever's going to do a revision, right? It's like, no, there's the song, you're picking it for a reason. And that's right. It, right? But for upcoming people, and I go through this with, it's very interesting because I've worked with several artists who are big stars that attempted to become film composers, and they have a hard time with it because they're looking at their work, as an artist looks at their work, of like, I've sweated on this for hours and I'm sitting with someone playing in the playback to picture, and he's on his phone texting his girlfriend about what they're doing for dinner that night. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't like it, like, literally. And you've just like, dude, I just spent 3 weeks, $50,000 doing the song, and that's my note, whereas like the bigger film composers know how to manage that situation just because they've done it, right? And they know it's like, it's not about, yes, it's about their music. I don't mean to say it like that, but it's really about the picture. And if it's not working for the director, it's not working, right? So you've got to make the changes so that you don't get fired. And believe it or not, I've been on huge pictures where people have been let go, and it's horrible. Regardless of whether you get paid $300,000 to walk away, it's still like that kind of goes against your resume, and so you always, I've worked with some of the biggest composers, and they are the masters of figuring out what is driving the problem and fixing that, right? Whatever that is. And, again, you want to be a solution. It's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it's tricky. I mean, it's tricky. You don't want to beat it to death, but I think that most people, you do become a consummate, I don't want to say salesperson isn't the right thing, but obviously if you're excited about the music and you're willing to adapt and what the changes are. But I've had it, I swear to God, it's the worst feeling in the world seeing someone get going to film, right? Because every one of these composers is like Juilliard, frickin' went to Eton in London, trained at Abbey Road. I mean, they're like amazingly talented. I don't even feel qualified to comment on their stuff, right? And then you have someone giving them notes that either doesn't know a lot about music or they're just not bumping his personalities, you know? And that's a tough thing, right? Got to figure that out.
Sure, I can imagine.
And that comes with time. And I think what I've seen happening, because I've been doing it long enough now, is that a lot of composers come up with their creative partner. They come up with a showrunner in television. They come up with a director. They come up with a producer who's their guy, and they get brought in on project after project after project. For me, I turn to the same composers often just because I know they're really talented, but they're also going to get it done, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're a one-man show, you just like that. I can't have that. I can't micromanage that process, and I never would. But like, there's just not enough time. You're hiring these composers, you're hiring these songwriters because they're the art, they're the talent, right? And so it's like you want them to deliver the goods on that, right? And you want to give them all the tools they can. I mean, I always just try to put people together who I think are going to be compatible, and then just get out of the way. Make sure everybody's talking about the same language, and then just let them do their thing, and you have as good a shot of making it as anything.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, do you have any suggestions? Obviously, the production landscape has changed with COVID. Have you had to shift at all? What advice would you give to people during this time?
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And everybody's miserable. I mean, I talk to people daily, and they're all going, "Oh, my friend, at Hallmark, they did 39 movies this year." It's like they've got a pretty good system because they farm out all the posts pretty much to Canada, right? So wherever the production is, they'll do it. He says it's very difficult, doing Zoom calls, trying to get people to return phone calls, trying to get, stuff that you could walk down the hall and go, "Oh, go to the post-production office," and, you go meet with the director, and you go meet with the producer, and you go meet with the editor, and you go meet with the post-supervisor, and it's like tick, 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 tick. Now trying to get all those people to play together is just hard. It's no one's fault. It just is what it is, right? So it's just added another layer of problems. And I find it especially hard, with Chloe, as far as like shopping her, like she's, was on fire in February where Analog, Bluebird, Sundance Film Festival, like tick, 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 agency, UTA, all these things are happening, gone. And I can't really blame an agent for not wanting to take a meeting right now, because he can't pick your band, like the biggest stars in the world. Like, they're not doing gigs, right? So like, why is he going to go work with a new artist? Like, and it's frustrating because you're in this situation that everybody's in, of communication. So, I mean, I've still found that I have to put more effort in to reach out to people and try to keep that going. And just like the film you're talking, like the Reagan film, I mean, it's been up, it's off, it's up, it's off. The Kurt Warner football film, it's up, it's on, it's up, it's gone. So like, people are trying to figure out new ways to do stuff. I think that this will be a transition in entertainment, no different than the beginning of the internet, right? I think this has changed business forever, how business is going to get done. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I know music editors that are absolutely thrilled. They get up in their sweats, they go down to their basement, and they start working away, right? They're not sitting on the one-on-one for an hour each way every day. And then I know other people that are like, "Oh my God, I got to get out of here. I'm losing my mind. I have no one to bounce anything off of. I have nothing," right? So right. I think that part of it makes it a challenge. But the only good news is that everybody's going through the same thing, right? So we have to all just try to be patient and try to understand that it is what it is, like we had some big things happening this summer. Starting in May, they got pushed to June, they got pushed to July, they got pushed to August, they got pushed to back to school. That just went, the guy got fired, right? The big champion, right? He's like, they just like, how are you going to expect that the number one beer brand's going to fire the West Coast guy, right? So, and there went the opportunity, So you just got to keep looking for the new opportunities, and they're going to come. They're going to come. I really believe that, but it's just one of those things where you just got to hang in there.
Yeah, it is. It is reassuring to know that we're all in this together, and that's the good part, is that we're all going to come out on the other side stronger as well.
Yeah, and I think that, you're going to get rid of a lot of people. I think that there's a lot of people that aren't going to be working anymore, whether that's the biggest rock stars in the world or, independent people. Like they're letting people go, like they're not going to. And so, trying to carve away your own niche within all that and figure out how you're going to make a living. And I would just go back to your earlier question about like, how do you make money from not touring? Well, it's not just about touring and it's not just about sync. It's about all these things, right? And how you as an artist, like if you're in it for the long haul, then you're going to be constantly adapting. And we'll be having this conversation 10 years from now and going, wow, we're going to look back on this and go, man, that was a mess. Like, where do we go from here? And it's going to change. I don't think Zoom concerts are going to make much money for people ever. I don't care who you are. But then again, Live X Live, my friend's doing that. They're doing well with their concerts, right? Their Zoom concerts. But they're tying in all these other components. They're tying in merch and they're tying in lifestyle and they're tying in all these different things. So I think it depends. But yeah, I really just pray that that people start consuming music again the same way they were, because people aren't going to the gyms. They're not listening to this. I mean, Spotify numbers are down. YouTube, like consumption's down and music overall, just because people aren't in their car and they're not going to work and they're not going to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. So trying to discover new stuff. I mean, I have to, like it's challenging, you have to constantly be looking. But again, I think for a creative person, the best thing you can do right now is spend the time working on your craft and getting better at that. Mm-hmm. So that when you come out on the other side of this, you've got better material, you're a better live performer. And wherever you can play, however you can play. I mean, we just flew to Nashville to play Third and Lindsley for the Bluebird end of October. And people are like, wow, it's a long way to go for a gig. And I'm like, well, that might be the only gig she does this year. I mean, literally. And it was a killer show. It was Cassidy Pope and Parma Lee, and it was like a great bill. And it was worth doing it, right? Yeah. But like, yeah, I mean, trying to find a way to play is just such a challenge for artists right now.
Yeah.
So take advantage. Go busking. I don't care.
Yeah, do everything we can, right?
There's a guy playing violin at Trader Joe's. He's like a classically trained violin. I mean, it's like a guy's literally like LA Symphony. And people are just throwing the guy fives, right, at Trader Joe's. He's amazing, right? Hey, man, I got nothing but time. I'm playing my violin. I got to practice. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. This video series is also going to go out to some people on the film side as well as musicians. Sure. So what advice would you give to productions when they're preparing their budgets for music? Well, music is the bastard stepchild of every project, right? It's like everybody thinks music is free and music doesn't cost money. And, I either say with music, you either have time or money, but you have to plan for it because a great film deserves great music. A bad film still needs good music, right? So you have to kind of plan accordingly. And I've never not been able to get through a project, even when it's been like severely hampered by music. Because what they do is that every time you're running out of visual effects shot, or you need another week of editorial, like they cut from music to music. Music's the last thing to be done, right? So whoever's doing that budget, the line producer, whoever, has to plan, and has to try to look down the road as much as possible. It's hard to know whether it's going to be a, score-driven film, or is this the club scene in 1990s New York City where you're going to need a lot of music, right? And you're going to need music that is familiar. So you'd have to budget accordingly. So I think you got to know the project. Whereas like, a show like Yellowstone, that could be 100% score and you wouldn't even need a single song and it would be great. It's just that kind of show. So I think it's as a filmmaker, it's knowing your project. And with that all being said, that this is a score-driven project or this is a song-driven project, you won't know what that film's going to call for until it's done. I've had that happen multiple times where, like Bridge to Terabithia is a great example. That was a film set on a farm in West Virginia. You think that this is going to be American, not going in, Alison Krauss was going to score it, blah, 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 all this stuff. Well, when the boots hit the ground, it was like, we need songs in this movie. Like it was, we had Steve Earle, we had,
Lauren Iro, and there's a couple cool moments on camera where the kids are singing, but like, man, the film just was screaming for songs, and we ended up with like 9 songs in the movie. Right? If you told me that at the script level, I would have said, "There's no way. This is going to be a handful of Americana songs and a great score that's going to be Celtic, bluegrass, Alison Krauss." And not only was it not that, it was an 80-piece orchestra that needed the big Disney score, and then we needed these songs to kind of break up the emotion and reflect the youth of the kids and blah blah blah. But like, you just don't know till you get there. And I think as filmmakers, it's hard, especially on smaller budget films, to do that. And the other thing I would say for filmmakers, if they're doing $1 million film or $2 million film or something smaller budget, whatever, if you look at my IMDb credits, I've done the smallest films there is. I mean, I did a film that this guy did for $100,000. He called me up and he was like, "I've got this bro film. It's about these buddies that play in a band and they rehearse together all the time after work each week and every Thursday night, and their lives are all falling apart. They're in their 40s, blah, blah, blah. And the best song they play is Thin Lizzy's The Boys Are Back in Town." Like, and he goes, "And I want that to be my main title." And I'm like laughing, right? And like, he had no money. But we got a composer on to score the film, and who was one of their guys in the film, was a really good guitar player. And I said, "Well, let's forget about like orchestra. Let's do a rock score. Like, we're going to do a rock song score. You guys are in a rock band with a bunch of old middle-aged guys. Let's do this thing." So we did that. And then the film, we put together a really good sizzle reel, and I took it out to the publisher and I said, "Look, this is what publishers need to be doing. Like this, like these guys aren't going to be, they're not, first of all, they're not asking for worldwide in perpetuity. They want a year of festival rights to see if they can sell it. If not, they're going to rent a theater. They're going to show it to their friends, and that's going to be it. Right. And it's going to call it a day. And if they sell it so I put a step deal into place where that's the main title. I mean, it's on camera. It's a performance piece. It's like the most expensive use you can have for a song, but we got Thin Lizzy, and then he was super excited. So like, don't be afraid to like have high expectations. I worked with, when I was working with Red Bull, Red Bull had really great music on their stuff, but it was mainly their Red Bull library that they created.
Okay.
I thought it would be really fun. And I really thought, you've got this amazing content. Red Bull is such an iconic brand. Like, let's bring some super cool composers to the table that love just love the whole idea. And like, well, we can't afford that. We never budget for it. Like they don't. And we ended up getting Ben Harper to do one. He wrote 5 songs, scored the film, and did a music video. And it turned out great. And it was super fun for him because I was like, "Look, dude, you do whatever you want." And the director loved him. And he was like, "Just go crazy." Gave him super creative freedom. And he was like, where he didn't feel like he was being fenced in on some tentpole film and you got to do it this way. And this is why I was like, "No, this is an artistic thing. You can play around. You can have fun here." Turned out great. Everyone was thrilled. And then Junkie XL, we did a surf film with him. And it was the same kind of setting. I said, "Look, Junkie XL's $1 million composer now." And I said, but he's such an artist and he's such a from the streets guy that he'll dig this story, I think, of these 3 brothers. And I said, but you just got to let him do what he does, and he's such a scientist in the way he looks at music. And I told him, I go, "You just have a conversation with the director, and then just obviously we're not expecting an orchestral score, but let's go with something that's really cool that feels like you're in the water and da-da-da-da." And he killed it. The freaking great score. Wow. So there's always a way to skin the cat if even though you don't necessarily have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But that being said, you got to budget something. And it always amazes me. Like, people come up, like, the publishers and the labels don't feel sorry for you, trying to license music when you're spending $6 million on a film, but you forgot to put $300,000 in.
Right.
For music.
Right. So. Well, is there a percentage that a music budget should be in your mind?
No, there really isn't. I mean, you'd like to think there is, but there's just not. I mean, it's just, you have to obviously look at the setting of the project, and take a movie like The Room, or Orange Is the New Black. Well, I don't know if you need, how would you budget for music for that, other than based on a page count, right? So you just have to kind of come up with an amount, where the studios, the Paramounts, Disney's, Warners, those guys have fairly substantial budgets for everything they do. ABC TV, the networks all have really good music budgets. They're signatories to the union, so they can't really screw around, right? On an independent project, they're paying union fees, they're paying the whole thing, so they have to budget accordingly. But it's just one of those things. You have to make your best efforts as a filmmaker to go, I've got to put something aside, if music's important to me. And there's so many different ways to approach a score that doesn't need to be an orchestral score. Like the cheapest way to get a great score is with an acoustic guitar and a real piano. Like literally, that's it. You have that, and if you have a great melody and you can figure out how to do some other cheats, you can make a really beautiful emotional score with very little.
Yeah.
And I just or coming up with like a signature instrument. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna have, it's gonna be super sparse, and I'm gonna have like a great cello or a melodia, and it's gonna be this haunting thing that kind of comes around and comes around and comes around. It goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, one more thought for filmmakers: what advice would you give them when they're trying to incorporate musicians on camera into a scene?
Well, you plan, what can go wrong will go wrong, right? That I would definitely say. And I think that if you're going to have music on camera, you really have to put some thought into the relevance of that, right? So the relevance of that character, is it like wallpaper background, or is this an integral wedding scene, right? And the singer's, like the lead singer's this wicked 28-year-old James Brown character that's like, it's tied to the narrative of the story, and you just got to think that through, and also be thinking like how you're going to create those pre-records, because it literally, I've worked on half a dozen films where they did not pre-record the music films that are music related films where they didn't create a pre-record. Like, I understand that if it's a bar scene, there's some band on stage and you screwed up, but like, it's a music movie like that. If that's not right, then nothing else is going to work. Right. And planning ahead for that and planning those tracks and making sure your playback is working and all those different things. And it's very hard because it's all happening the same time, the same day. And you're trying to get a performance. You're burning daylight. You got to shoot this between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, and whatever, like what can go wrong will go wrong. So you just have to plan that your musicians are prepared, and that you can get as much coverage as you can from a camera shot point of view, right? Because you want to have, and it's usually the little things that make a difference. I find it's not getting the great wide shot of the band or getting behind the band to the audience. It's like getting a shot of the hi-hat, getting a shot of the foot on the kick drum, getting a shot of the guitar player strumming the guitar, getting a shot of the keyboard player playing and panning up to his face or whatever, right? It's those little things that give the editor something to cut to, right? Because the wide shot's the wide shot, people dancing in a bar or dancing at a wedding, for example, whatever. It's those little things that are going to be able to cut to that's going to make it interesting, right? And I've learned this from even just doing music videos with various artists. You spend all this time trying to get a great performance, right? But you can only look at a talking head, singing head so much, right? You really need to have something to cut to, whether it's the hands on the piano, the guitar player, some establishing outside shot, whatever that is, to kind of like keep it moving along, right? So you don't bore the viewer.
Definitely. Thank you for your input on that.
But as you've learned, you did it all, and it was like poof.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it that way. Okay. I remember I was working with Zoe Deschanel at British Terabithia, and I flew all the way to New Zealand to shoot this scene, and it was Steve Earle's Someday. I don't know if you know that song, but it's great. It's a classic song. So the kids Zoe's going to teach the kids the song. So I walk onto the set. There's like 40 extras in the classroom, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, whatever they were. And Zoe's there, and she's like, "Oh, I love these songs, such great song choices, and this and that." She goes, "I know the parts. I know them." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So then I'm like, I look at the first AD, and I'm like, "Have the kids like rehearsed the songs?" And he's like, "No." And so I just kind of walk around, and I walk out talking. I go, "Did you listen to the music?" He go, "Yeah, they sent us a CD. Yeah, they're great. Yeah, they're great." I said, "Do you know the words?" They go, Yeah. I go, "Have you guys rehearsed?" They're like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like, they're gonna go. Actually, these kids no one's gonna sing. That's what's gonna happen, right? So I'm like, Oh God. So I got this Georgia Cogby's a friend of mine. He was a music supervisor on it too. And so we took him out in the back in the alley, and then we played the song on the stereo, and I got out a guitar and I sang along, played guitar, and then you guys got to sing louder. Like you got to really, like you sing it. And I had them all singing like birds within an hour. Like they knew every word. And then we went back into the set, and it just was amazing to me that like, that's just one of those things. Nobody had thought about that. Right.
Wow.
I worked on another film where the mayor had to get the crowd to sing the national anthem. They were supposed to like sing like Hail to the Chief, like the national anthem to the city. And so I'm looking at the call sheet and like, what's going on? They're like, and I go, and it says, oh, crowd sings. So I'm like, has anybody, because we had spent a lot of time recording the song, this anthem. We actually created a national anthem, right? Based on the story and blah, blah, blah. And I said, have they learned it? They said, well, no. I said, well, they're not going to sing. And of course, well, of course they are. It's like, how are they going to know what to sing? They don't even really know the song. Like this has to be rehearsed. And they're like, they don't know the lyrics. They can't hold sheet music. It's their national anthem. They know it's like stars. The Star Spangled Banner, right? Or at least can fake it.
Right.
So we had to go out and rent these giant 10 by 10 flat screen project TVs to put behind the leader, right? And then the crowd's out there, like 600 people, and do run-throughs with typing all the lyrics, put the lyrics up on the screen, play the music. I go, we need a PA. They're like, what do you mean we need a PA? I go, we got a PA. I go, if this isn't playing loud, it's just like church. No one's going to sing. They'll just be whispering, right? Because nobody's going to feel that confident. I go, but if the music's playing loud, they're going to feel more confident to sing, right?
Yeah.
And anyways, so it's like, it's just those things that, as if you're thinking of that, have music on camera, like, how are you going to get that performance out of those things? Like, right? I mean, Jamie from Ray spent months with Ray Charles, like just picking up every little idiosyncrasy he could of him singing.
And did an incredible job.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just like absolutely incredible. And Taylor Hackford's incredible. And like that's the one that was a film where I was just like, whoa, I'm just getting out of the way of this one. Like they were so on their A game. Everything from the quality of the pre-records, the quality of the music, Jamie's performances, everything was just so amazing. It's probably one of the greatest experiences of working on a film.
Wow. I bet.
Yeah.
That sounds like it would be. Yeah. I just wanted to ask you one more question before we go today. Do you have any advice about brand partnerships as we shift from our conversation here a little bit? I know your brand partnerships probably are on a lot larger scale than maybe some musicians starting out, but what is your overall advice on going about getting a brand partnership? Well,
it's tricky because there's a bunch of different players in the mix, right? So just like on a film or TV show, the players on an ad campaign are the brand. It's Nike, it's whoever, Corona beer, whatever, right? So they've got their agenda from their marketing point of view. This is our spring campaign. This is what we're thinking. There's going to be a whole bunch of cool stuff coming out because of COVID, right? When you come out of COVID, it's going to be like, rah, rah, we did it, There's going to be all this stuff. The Olympics are coming and all these different things are going to be coming along those lines, right? Then you've got the agency that represents that. So it's Saatchi & Saatchi, it's whoever, Golden State, and these different agencies that represent those brands. Then within that, they hired a creative person, creative director. They got a director, and they've got, like there's a bunch of, people in the pie that all have opinions. And usually it's the director and the creative director, coming up with an overall campaign and then presenting that to the agency who presents it to the brand, right? So it's like the layers of the politics are fairly thick. And I think that, the things, that is really one of the trickiest things in the world because every creative director is like a former DJ with impeccable taste. And, and so like, I say that with slight sarcasm, but, they have an idea what they want. And it's usually something that's like way over there, right? Or it's Phil Phillips' home, right? And that could have come from the executive at the medical company, it's like, oh, my son played me that song. I really like that song. That'd be great for our product, And it's like rams it down the ad agency's throat and says, come up with something around the song. So you don't really know. I do think that the creative directors are big music fans. They're listening to a lot of indie playlists. They're listening to different things. Obviously, there's been a big trend in taking a familiar song and turning it its ear as far as a cover. I always use the example of California Dreamin' for the California Lottery commercial, right? So they went, this was even before, hard to believe it was before Billie Eilish, but they went super dark, stripped down tempo, in just that chorus, right? All the leaves are brown. Like, if I pitched that in a meeting and said, oh, I want to go for really depressing music, but you won the lottery, you'd be like, what the hell? That's the dumbest idea in the world, right? But it works, right? It works for them. So I think you just want to come up with some, obviously the familiarity seems to be important for brands. So for a new artist, it's the opportunity to create, a new cover. And I'm not saying just Walking on Sunshine, it's like, what are those? There's certain songs that get licensed a lot, but my friend used to work at Capitol and he pitched Blondie's Hanging on the Telephone to every phone company in the world, never got it cut, right? Like we pitched Kiss Me got pitched to every baby company, baby commercial, Pampers, chewing gum, Scope, lipstick, nothing.
Wow.
So, yeah. And you just don't know. I mean, it's just that is one of the toughest things to do. And more what I've been doing is trying to bring big talent to brands. So that's it's not really a fair apples to apples as far as being a new artist. But so I've been kind of like trying to go, oh, it'd be really cool to work this artist. This is a big, important thing to them. How can we do something cool with them? Because if I make it cool for the artist, then they're going to be excited about the brand, And so like a big thing in the branding space right now, which is a big business, is really taken off, is creating a sound design for the brand. So it's the swoosh for Nike is the classic example. Well, now every brand wants their sound, their, whatever that is, right? They want their thing. And so that's opening up a whole bunch of new ideas, and they own that, right? Like it's like a work for hire. It's a trademarked thing, just like the logo is. And so that's becoming a bigger business right now.
That's exciting.
I have friends who are working in that space, right? My friend created the "We Are Farmers," bum, 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 bum.
I love it. I'm
like, what? Sad, right? And it's it's just kind of like corny, but the company's called Farmers.
You remember it.
Right?
You remember how it goes.
Yeah. So I just think it's one of the tough, like even for me, and I know a lot of people, it's still hard to get the music girl from Saatchi on the phone and figure out what their initiatives are, figure out who the players are, figure out who's the discovery person. If anything, I had a friend who got a Kraft macaroni commercial in Canada because he ate Kraft dinner every day for 365 days, like every day. And so he wrote this song about it and they loved it and they ended up using it,
That's great. I love that.
There's another guy in Canada. They're called, they're like a, kind of like a redneck comedy thing, but they did this song called Out for a Rip, which is super making fun of Canadians basically. And they can get away with it. They're like construction guys. And it's like drinking and smoking and fighting and doing whatever, right? Watching hockey games. It's like everybody in Toronto's nightmare, but for them, it's like perfect. Well, it ended up becoming a huge hit, unbeknownst to them, online, and Coca-Cola ended up picking it up and using the Canadian campaign up there. So,
wow, that's awesome.
You just never know. Just do, like, at the end of the day, honestly, just do stuff that you've been doing, because there's no point in trying as an artist or as a filmmaker to, try to appease other people. You got to do stuff you like to do. You got to write about what you like to write about. And if it's meant to be and the timing is there, and that's going to be your time to strike. And if it's not, you can still look yourself in the face and go, I did what I enjoy doing creatively, right? Because you could go crazy. I mean, you go crazy chasing whatever is you know this as a writer, right? You're like, oh, this is happening. You go into a publisher's meeting, like, hey, can you write something just like Blake Shelton's? And you're like, really? Okay. You know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I really feel like the songs that are authentic, you know, really are the ones that truly shine. And I think that authenticity really matters. And
oh, absolutely. You got to be who you are, and people can smell it a mile away. And, you know, yes, there's some people like I know that are just writing machines. And if you listen to every one of their songs, everyone has the same internal rhyme in the bridge. You know, it lands the same way. They're almost always in the same key. They've got a formula down, and they know if they pitch that song around town enough, it's going to get cut, right? Like, just because people are used to hearing that song. Now, it's not going to last forever, right? It's not going to last forever. But I think when you think of like great songwriters that have stood the test of time, they're just kind of writing what moves them and pushes them, you know. The joke in the publishing business is that we sign people because they're unique, and then we make them generic, right? You sign them like, oh, she's so different. Oh my God, she's so cool. And then put them in a writer's room with a bunch of guys that have been there, you know, 15 years, and it just all starts to go like this, watered down.
oh man.
Yeah, got to do it big.
Yeah. Do you have any final words before we sign off of advice?
No, you know what? Just keep on keeping on. You got to, you know, I believe in what John Maxwell says. You know, you do what you love, you do it a lot. If it's any good, that's what you do. Right?
Great.
You know, and if you can make some money doing it, that's what you do. If you can't make money doing it, then it's kind of a hobby. So like I've always wanted, you know, I would love to be a chef, right? I cook constantly, as you can see online. I'm always, you know, cooking, and I always wanted to be a chef. Now, at my age, I really don't think I could do it physically anymore. But like, that's the kind of thing. Had I done that when I was 25, I'd probably be Wolfgang Puck, you know, like. But I didn't, you know, my family wasn't into that. Like, they didn't understand it, and you know, they ended up with a musician. But like, you have to do what you love. You got to throw your back into it 110%. And believe. And somebody said to me today, somebody said like, well, what's a realistic time frame for this or that? And I was just like, oh, come on, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like there is no realism to any of this. Like if I can't even believe I got a publishing deal. Like when I look back on that now, I was literally just like, I'd go to concerts and I'd hand cassettes out. I'd go to sound check at the Forum or the Cobo Hall in Detroit, and I would give my cassettes to people, right? Thinking it could get in the right hands. And it did, and I got a huge cut, right? Like the odds of that happening are like zero, right? And which led to a publishing deal, which led to other things and other things, right? So the thing is, you can't, I think there comes a point for every artist where they go, you know, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to beat my head in a van driving around the country, you know, playing shitty bars. But like, you could use those creative skills towards other things. And I think that that's what happens with, you know, I mean, obviously playing live and touring and stuff, like, generally speaking, is a younger person's game. Yes, it's changed a bit with the internet and all that. But, you know, there just comes a point where you just don't want to do that the same way. So, okay, how do I take all those skills I had and turn myself into maybe I'm going to write scripts, you know. I mean, you're a creative person. That's just who you are, right?
Yeah.
And I had one of my good friends who's my partner on this TV show that Sony bought. He was a producer working for one of the biggest directors in Hollywood. I'm talking, this guy's done $1 billion in films with him, this director. And he was 44, hated his life. He was making, you know, $500,000 a year. It's just like, I hate what I do every day. I hate babysitting people. I hate yelling at people. I've got to be the bad guy to the good guy, the director, right? And he literally walked away from the job and was like getting coffee in a writer's room on a 1-hour TV show just to sit in the room. And obviously this guy's very smart, right? He's not stupid. But he goes, he'd always wanted to be a writer. And he goes, I realized after 20 years in the business, the only people that really get respect in TV and film are the writers, right? Everybody else gets kicked around, shit on, and blah, 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 blah. Because, but writers have a certain amount of respect, and if you're good at it and you deliver, you'll be working all the time. And within, you know, a year and a half, he was a staff writer And he did 8 years on that show. Then he went to another show for 3 years, and another show for 2 years, then another show for 3 years. And he's just like working. And he's pushing 60 now, and he's like a legit WGA writer, but literally threw away a huge job, like making ridiculous money. And he's just like, I can't do it anymore. Like, I can't sit in these cutting rooms with crazy people. I just can't do it. I've got to do something that I do it. He goes, with television, he was telling me, he goes, it's so satisfying. You get your episode, you write it, 3 weeks later, it's being shot. 3 weeks later, it's in post. You see a cut. 3 weeks later, it's on TV. And within 15 minutes of that 3 minutes, you know whether it worked or not, right? And maybe it didn't, and maybe it didn't. But like, it's like satisfaction of your work ethic. Versus, I've spent 3 years on films that came and went in a day, like literally pulled from theaters. Like, this is a dog turd. It needs to go. And you're like, oh my God. So I spent 3 years, but not literally, but somebody spent 3 years every day working on that film, and it didn't work,
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, my best advice is like, never stop growing, never stop trying to learn new things, never stop trying to understand the process of how things work, and try to stay creative and use what skills come to you naturally and throw gas on that. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay, for being here today. I
can help.
Appreciate your time and all of your advice in so many different areas. It's really cool that you've had so much experience from so many different perspectives.
Yeah, and I've got some, like, this year is going to be an interesting year. It's going to be a very interesting year. I've got a couple projects. One of them is just massive, and it's going to be a huge time commitment, which, will make some money, but it's like, it's going to be a lot of work. And I can't talk about it, but if it goes, it'll be great. But it's also like, it's daunting. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I hope it works out and it's not as daunting as you imagine it may be.
I'll call you at 2 a.m. I need a song.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Lindsay, thank you so much for being here with us for the Searchlight Sessions. This video series is designed to help up-and-comers in the entertainment industry, as you know, to expand ways that they can be successful. Stay tuned for some more takeaway ideas from this session to assist with your success.